Speaking of rationalizing, I rationalize that we should get this started.
All right.
Well, here we are, folks. Episode 85 of this here podcast, the Handsome Hockey Podcast.
That's 85% of the way to 100.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, we'll get there in like 2025.
Hashtag maths.
Oh, this is an English podcast, apparently. I saw a book the other day for a class at the college I work at, and it was like maths, science. I was like, no. Not allowed.
I think that is like technically possible. Like, I think that is correct.
I don't care. No, just because it's acceptable and correct doesn't mean it's correct.
That sounds like something one of the old white 200 hockey men would say.
Well,
that's like a Don Cherry
I'm
quote.
Getting older and I'm white, so shit, I might be on the downward spiral. Like, you're gonna have to kick me off this podcast.
Yeah, we all might be on the downward spiral. You know, that's how things are going these days. It feels like at times.
Speaking of downward spirals, though, women's hockey in North America.
Yeah, it's having a rough go of things. We're hoping it turns out to be the foundation of something new, but like Oppenheimer shows us, the destruction part is relatively key to the recreation part.
I haven't seen the movie yet, so don't spoil it for me.
I haven't either.
Oh, okay.
The ship sinks in the end.
Oh, you just ruined Brokeback Mountain for me. Oh yeah, I'm Jake. This is Evan.
Hi.
Yeah, podcasting.
Yep,
we're good at it.
We're at it again.
Yeah, 85 episodes in, and we're still fucking up.
Don't tell the guards.
At least we won't have any keys hit the floor in this episode.
Yeah, hope not.
Mine are securely in my pocket.
I got my carabiner.
Oh, see, yeah, we're golden.
I took a rope in here.
Probably the most significant event to happen in the 3+ weeks since we recorded. And apologies on my end. I got the fuck out of Dodge for a while.
Hey, we warned him in the last episode. It's fine. You take your PTO.
I can still apologize. I still worked like half the time I was gone.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know.
I shouldn't have.
PTO from this podcast.
Yeah. I have PTSD from this podcast. So we should warn you ahead of time. We're both kind of tired, so tangents will be long, meandering, and meaningless. But eventually we will get back to the hockey. Speaking of which, so the biggest news that kind of came out of this like post-apocalyptic PHF, PWHPA, murder and execution, which is a joke I'm going to make a couple of times in this, despite it being the title of our last episode, I believe.
Well, in as much,
yeah.
You have to get the joke.
Yeah. The former part owner of the Boston Pride, Miles Arnone. I think I'm saying that right. Could be Arnone, could be Arnone. I'm going to go with Arnone.
Okay. I think that's good.
Okay. Had an interview with Ian Kennedy over at the Hockey News, and he did not hold back his feelings about the whole thing. And
no, he did not.
I think it's important to note that there's a lot of salt being thrown around in this interview, and which is totally understandable considering the fact that this thing that he had, propped up financially and put a lot of like mental and emotional sweat into building is, gone. And while he was compensated for his equity that he put into it, there's still a very bitter taste in the mouth of definitely Miles, but I think he's speaking for a large chunk of the fractured PHF.
Yeah, he built it, and they came in and bought it. I completely commiserate with where he's coming from. I mean, obviously, these need to be understood as the opinions of just one person in all of this, and some of this hasn't necessarily been corroborated, but
it's definitely an opinion, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some people have said, critical things about him as well in response to this. I won't get into those because I don't think I know them well enough to comment on it. But yeah, he alleges some pretty substantial things.
I think probably the most substantive of this is that he levels some pretty brash accusations at Billie Jean King, stating that Billie Jean King was largely pretty aloof in most of the meetings that they had.
I mean, she's old and tired. It's like saying that Biden's aloof.
Yeah, but he's the fucking president, man. Right. You can't be aloof. And that she seemed more concerned with throwing out barbs and zingers in the middle of these PHF, PWHPA interactions.
Oh, man.
And then she would remain off camera and off microphone for large portions of the meeting, and then would interrupt by turning on her microphone and her camera, drop a mic drop, and then turn off her stuff. And you could just see her sitting there smugly with this look of gotcha.
So this is her, the person, and not. Oh, okay.
Not the Enterprise herself.
Yeah, I was thinking this is the
her.
Enterprise. This is we are talking
about Billie Jean King,
tennis star Billie Jean King.
Yeah,
being the Zoom meeting attendee from hell.
Yeah, and we are in no way trying to detract from the mountainous things that Billie Jean King has done for women's sports.
No,
she is very close to unparalleled in what she has fought for and stood for her entire life.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm sure a lot of those things that made her, a tenacious competitor and allowed her to succeed in all of these things, also probably make her a bit difficult to work with at
and
times.
A shitty capitalist.
Maybe.
It turns out being hyper competitive works in capitalism as well as it does in the athletic field.
Yeah. I'm way too late to this news.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah. And so one of the other things was that Miles got the kind of perspective that Billie Jean King wasn't really out to positively impact the women's game. She constantly harped that the only way women's hockey could succeed is if they had backing of the NHL, which at the time was absolutely not possible due to the financial hardships that the NHL suffered under COVID.
Which is, that's not a untenable position on its face.
Right. And then she also allegedly courted Saudi Arabian money to Saudi Arabian investors to help with
who isn't these days? Come on. My parents are courting them, our dog sitters courting Saudi Arabian money, our former presidents
they only care about Frenchies. It turns out the worst dogs. Nah, I think pugs are the worst dogs. Frenchies are number 2.
They're different versions of the same concept in my eyes.
Okay, we can meld them into one shitty terror beast if you want. I saw a husky yellow lab mix the other day, and it was one of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen in my entire life.
Interesting.
And it came up to me and wanted pets, and I was like, I am about this.
All right.
This was while I was at Drag Queen Bingo, and I was leaning out the open garage door of 10 Barrel, just like giving it pets.
So like the opposite of a shitty terror beast.
Yes. Yeah. Like the polar opposite of it. Anyways, Saudi Arabians, notorious proponents of women's equality and women's rights.
Oh yeah, all of it.
They're just like trying to take things off of women's plates so they don't stress out so much. Like, showing their face in public
or driving,
and like being allowed to go to the grocery store without a male escort. Shit like that.
I mean, yeah, you're just really thoughtful.
Yeah, just super
romantic,
considerate.
Moves.
Yeah, it's very chivalrous if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Very like they tip their hat.
Yeah, they hold doors open.
Say milady.
They dismantle Jamal Khashoggi.
I mean, it's just really making complicated charcuterie. It's just a sign of love.
Yeah,
it's cooking.
It's definitely like in the best interest of it's like every day is Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I mean, you're not really considering your significant other's feelings unless you are catching them human meat
and like not allowing them to go outside because the sun is so harsh there. Mm-hmm. We're just looking out for their complexion.
Oh, you know what we should do? We should play soccer there. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect place to have a World Cup.
If it wasn't good enough for Leo Messi, it's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
A funny story. Number one reason why Leo Messi didn't go play in Saudi Arabia, his wife was like, I don't want to fucking live there.
Saudi Arabia is such a pariah. They forced the greatest soccer star of our generation to play in the MLS.
Yeah, and score a fucking goal, a game-winning goal in his first 20 minutes of playing.
Yeah, and the only shitty thing about that goal was it maybe sort of distracted from Sophia Smith's 2-goal dominance against Vietnam for the USA Women's World Cup team. I mean,
finally we beat Vietnam in something.
Had to be said.
Yeah, had to be said.
I felt bad for them. They were woman on woman, they were at least 6 to 8 inches shorter.
And a good 40 pounds. Yeah. And the ball almost never crossed midfield into the US. People were like, oh, it was only 3-0. I'm like, did you watch that game?
Yeah, it wasn't a blowout. 3-0 is a blowout.
First off, yeah, it's a blowout in soccer. And second, Vietnam didn't have the ball.
At all. And if they'd have cared more about score differential, they probably would have racked it up even more. And Alex Morgan narrowly missed on
several attempts
and the penalty. And that
was a very poorly taken penalty.
I actually just want to give credit to that goaltender.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I think she deserves all of the credit.
That should be the highlight of her career right there. I stopped an Alex Morgan penalty, and she's one of the best strikers in the history of the women's game.
And the rest of the game, she was all over the place. And I was not the only person to take note of that. A whole lot of people are like, holy shit, this Vietnamese goaltender is just, keeping this from becoming a true laugher. What a stellar singular effort.
Yeah. And it should be of note that the Vietnamese women's program is in the World Cup, and they've only had a women's soccer team since 1997.
Oh, have they? Okay.
In theory, the women who are on this team are just barely old enough to have been born after the creation of this team.
Yeah, so they're their team is about the same age as the Brandy Chastain sports bra.
Yeah, that was 2000? 99?
I thought that was 96. Fuck.
No, it couldn't have been 96 because the men's World Cup was in 96. So it was 97, right? 1999. Okay. I'm glad I Googled that on my work computer. I'm sure I'll hear about that from my superiors at some point.
You were looking at porn. No, I was looking at American dominance.
Yeah. This is America number 1. USA number 1. Vietnam number 32.
Take that, HR.
Another... We are so fucking removed from talking about hockey.
I love this. I think it's perfect.
Another thing that Miles Arnone said was that Stan Kasten, who is ostensibly running this new league on behalf of the Mark Walter Group, said that they wanted to get rid of the Boston Pride name because he didn't want people to take pride as being aligned with the LGBTQ community.
Oof.
Do you know who your fan base is?
Yeah. That's pretty bad. And it's just like alienating a whole lot of fans just right off the get-go. And I don't know, Billie Jean King's like political opinions and whatnot, but
probably a libertarian.
Perhaps. I don't want to assume. Yeah. I'm sure the Mark Walter Group wants something that's sellable, but I don't understand why nuking all of these brands' intellectual property makes any sort of business sense, because the Boston Pride have been around since like before there was much of a league for them to play in. And, the backing was independently gotten for this like Montreal team not so long ago. So one would think that they could more or less float on their own. Yeah, it doesn't make any sort of sense to me to nuke all of the brands except sort of out of some sort of spite or just saying like, we're starting afresh, like fuck all y'all.
Oh, it's pettiness for sure.
Yeah, it sucks a lot.
PWHPA, super petty.
And reportedly, one of the jerseys that they really didn't like was the Riveters Pride jersey. And so, on air, we have a gift for both of us.
Oh. I like gifts.
Actually, to say it's mine, but you can borrow it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Aww.
Game worn Kilponen jersey from the Rivs, courtesy the market of DF Pendries Le Marché.
That beautiful human.
Yeah, and what a beautiful jersey.
Oh, it's like, it's sexy, it's beautiful, it's wonderful.
I think it'll fit.
For sure.
That's heavy. That's an ice hockey jersey.
Oh, absolutely.
This is something this is made in the USA.
Good for that.
Wow.
Yeah. See, all of the great things that the PHF did undone, shitty by a bunch of Canadians. No,
a bunch of capitalist vultures.
Yeah, I will say venture capitalists. That joke's been made so many times. I'm going to cut it.
If something comes of this, I think our anger will subside. If they turn around and re-add some of these teams, allow Montreal to be its own thing and come into the league, maybe we'll be aboard at some point, but it's hard not to get past just the bitterness to see something that you were excited for just get nuked into oblivion all of a sudden.
Okay. Two things real quick. Yes, absolutely. We admittedly came into the women's game and went hard on the NWHL and then the PHF upon starting this podcast and wanting to be inclusive to all sides of the game. Mm-hmm. And so we've been doing this for like 3 years now and 2.5. And, to see something that we like just championed in our own lives very hard, like, telling people to watch it and like going out and watching games with people and like trying to like build support for a league, even though the closest team is like 4 hours away by plane, like just trying to like be a part of that and seeing it destroyed due to what we'll get into later is like basically like shitty pettiness, is really sad. The second thing is I've kind of removed myself from most facets of social media, thus putting a lot of pressure on Evan to do social media for the podcast. But I will say this, the thing I miss the most about being on Twitter is interacting with DF. They are incredible, just a brilliant human being. And if you're listening, I miss you.
And, part of that... also interacting with the better part of hockey Twitter and like the women's hockey Twitter, which I'm sure will not be the same. I mean, people are losing jobs. People are having to pivot to almost to different careers at times, I think. So yeah, we're not really looking forward to adjusting to whatever new paradigm we're faced with. And, it seems like the more we're hearing, the bleaker and bleaker it's getting. It harkens back to like Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live after Trump got elected. And he's like, well, maybe this isn't going to be the absolute shit. Give him a chance. And then it's like, oh, we're hiring Betsy DeVos.
Oh, no.
Oh, we're hiring Jeff Sessions. Oh man. Like that's the silence and the trickle and the timing and the starkness and bleakness kind of feels like that. I hope my worries are misplaced.
We all do. And, in the last episode, we talked about this being like, stepping backwards to go forward. One of the interesting things that Miles Arnone said in his brought up in his interview with Ian Kennedy was that the CBA that the PWHPA signed is actually extremely limiting in their growth potential.
Fancy
and
that.
They signed an 8-year contract on this CBA, or an 8-year CBA.
Term, yeah.
8 years of term on this CBA.
You were right the first time.
Sure. Yeah. We'll leave them all in so people can see how much I don't trust myself. They capped earnings at $85K, I believe, per player, which is about half of what some of the high earners in the PHF were making.
Yeah. Which, I mean, while it sounded good, those were just promises after a while. And, there's an argument to be made that this lower rate might be more realistic, but it's nevertheless hard to see, hard to take. And it's not coming with a lot of assurances.
Yeah. And and Arnone points out that the PWHPA players, the high level, like the Sarah Nurses, the Kendall Coyne Schofields of the world, they were going to be fine regardless.
Sure.
But this CBA actually really hurts the low end earners in this league. And that's the point that really sticks out to me, is that it further cements the fact that this move was never about women's hockey. It was about a fuck you to the PHF. How dare you exist and build what we could not build based off of just our name recognition and popularity in the sport.
So if that's the case, I mean, why would the PHF ownership agree to that? Like, would they not just play defense? Like, just to cash out? Or like, were they on a different financial footing than what they were saying? Like I reading into it, I feel like that's got to be the case. Like there had to be some, overkicking of coverages by the PHF in their salaries, and like there were warning lights internally that we weren't seeing on the outside.
So Miles Arnone states that there's an NDA in place.
Of course there is.
Right.
That's exactly why.
And so some of the negotiations, however, took place before the NDA was signed, and so anything that happened before the NDA was open for public comment.
Do they adjudicate that like offsides? Like, is it like
no? It's more like a divorce setting. Like, what did you have before the divorce, and what did you have after?
Yeah, like is it like
or before the marriage and after?
And like if somebody says something, like do they go to an adjudicator and like you did or did not violate the NDA? Like, oh, you scored a goal. Let's look and see if you were maybe offsides 5 minutes ago. I digress.
Yeah, I think it from what Arnone says, it sounds like the financial hardship of the PHF, it was kind of a fictitious thing.
I mean, I would say
wasn't the case.
The NDA says something else to me, but okay.
I think personally, I think the NDA says that the powers that be in the Mark Walters group and Billie Jean King Enterprises don't want people talking about how shitty of a process this was.
Oh yeah, and like we heard, nothing about or everything about the Ottawa buying process being like awful and acrimonious, and now we get like this league buying another league being just exponentially more awful and more acrimonious, and it's just it really is like Days of Our Lives meets Hunger Games meets like a bad hockey movie.
Is there such a thing as bad hockey movie?
Okay, that's maybe a misnomer. Yeah,
Most valuable primate.
Yeah.
I think the other like two quick points to bring out is that Arnone states, and this is one of the things that you really need to take with a grain of salt, is that he states that the PHF never had any sort of acrimonious behavior towards the PWHPA, and that all of the like disharmony came from the PWHPA side. There's no way that's true.
Yeah, I also find that hard to believe, and say that generally as someone that wants to side with the PHF, like there's no way there's not some pushback.
Yeah. However, I am willing to believe that it was largely one-sided from the PWHPA, especially after like Sarah Nurse and Kendall Coyne-Schofield's comments came out afterwards, where they're like, "We built exactly what we wanted," and it was like, "No, you didn't."
Yeah, and then you bought the next thing.
No, you bought the thing that existed and then pretended like you built it. Like you didn't do shit. You didn't build a league. You just played hockey games. Like
I mean that's that's a true American story.
Yeah, or a Sarah Nurse Canadian story. And the kind of like final kind of tongue lashing that Arnone gives out is that the PHWA got what they wanted, not a creation of a league on their terms, but what they really actually wanted was the death of the PHF. And on some levels, that seems kind of hard to swallow, but honestly, I actually buy it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we've seen in terms of messaging, in terms of actions, and yeah, this was more like buying up your competitor and shutting them down than buying up your useful competitor's assets. Like it is more of a hostile takeover, even though the mechanisms are not necessarily what that is.
Yeah. So I think what we are looking at ultimately is that the PWHPA got some rich benefactors and bought what they couldn't create themselves, and ultimately it's, I think, a large step back for the women's game. Since the murder and execution of the PHF, we've seen a couple of things that just proved to be falsehoods. Like, there was this promise of continuity between PHF staff members, like team staff members, not players, but staff members. And that was a total lie. They all got fired or let go.
Was that promised?
It was like a first thing that came out was that, we're going to keep players, or we're going to keep staff members in place. We might move them, but blah, blah, blah. No, gone. One of the biggest gripes of the PWHPA was like, oh, you play in shitty arenas and don't have facilities. And like, Montreal had signed a contract to play in a 10,000 seat beautiful arena in Quebec, like
eclipsing the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, it would have been the 31st most populous rink in the NHL, and first in the PHF. And, you know, finally, like, we're still, if you are a European player who had signed a contract to stay in the PHF or play in the PHF, and your visa is contingent on employment, you're sitting there going, well, what the fuck do I do? Because now the PWHPA is dragging their ass trying to set up this new league. We were like, they're like, oh, we're going to have details to you in like a week. Well, it's been a month and nah. So hopefully we hear something in the coming weeks and months, and like hopefully we understand like who the players are going to be, and hopefully these people are able to figure their life out.
I have a sitcom idea. It's a European women's hockey player comes to America, works construction.
European women's hockey player comes to America to live in a small apartment with their cousin in New York.
European women's hockey player comes to America, works at McDonald's.
European women's hockey player comes to America, befriends 6 white people in New York City, and then only interacts with other white people for 9 seasons. Yes, I'm describing Perfect Strangers and Friends.
It's going to be a hit.
Perfect Strangers is one of the most underrated sitcoms of all time.
It's maybe insensitive to make light of people's visa issues, but any sort of coming to America story is always comedy gold.
Including the Alex Galchenyuk story. It's really serious, but ultimately, like, kind of like the Robin Lehner saga, it's also really funny.
Yeah, it's sad, but also a little ridiculous, especially considering who he is, the story that he's had. You know, I didn't realize this until this all happened, but he has a prior stint in the player assistance program, and
I didn't know that either, actually.
In his myriad of teams that he's played for, but like nothing so dramatic as what transpired, and in fact got his contract voided after 12 days for cause by the Arizona Coyotes. And the player association's reportedly like still investigating. There may be some other shoes to drop in that saga, because just voiding a contract is fairly unprecedented. And
even Mitch Miller didn't get his contract immediately voided.
Right.
That happened recently as well.
Yeah. And like other players have done perhaps worse, more controversial things and not had their contracts voided. There's some definite discongruity there, but maybe those players didn't have the, like I said, the theatrics of what transpired between Alex Galchenyuk and a car and some police officers in Arizona.
The report from the officers is like plays like if somebody wrote a really bad script about like a famous person trying to like prove how famous they were.
Oh yeah, and like when this first came out, my reaction, which I'm still sort of wondering if this happened in some sort of facsimile, but was like, he pulled a, "Do you know who I am?" And the police officers were like, "No." And then that's when he explodes.
Yeah. And we're cribbing this from an, of course, Katie Strang article in The Athletic, because
The Athletic.
Katie Strang is everywhere and yet nowhere.
She's where all of the bad things
Yeah.
are happening.
So
often.
largely in Arizona.
Just bought a house.
Yeah, Strang writes, in the report, an officer detailed how Galchenyuk was curt and profane when the police began asking him questions after seeing him laying on the ground approximately 20 feet from a car and a sign that was damaged.
Laying on the ground 20 feet from a car? Like, I am concerned for his well-being.
Yes, yeah. According to the report, Galchenyuk was helped back into the car by a second individual, later identified as his father.
His father, who was notorious for, like, texting him criticisms and, like, being part of the reason that he was always sort of a head case and having that reputation throughout the league. Go on.
Who was also apparently more drunk than him if he wasn't driving. Galchenyuk, once in the car, began making erratic movements. Galchenyuk told an officer, "I will chop all of you fucks," and began to reach under his seat, prompting a warning from the officer.
I mean, in America, that just gets you dead.
Well, if he had been black, yes. Let's be honest. If he was a person of color, he'd be dead right now. The officer described a struggle while Galchenyuk was placed under arrest, leading the two officers on the scene to assist in placing him in handcuffs while on the ground. With Galchenyuk in the back of the patrol car en route to the police station, he allegedly made a number of threatening comments to the officers. According to the report, these include, "I'm gonna chop you and your daughter. Let me go or I will make one phone call. You'll never see your family. How scary is that? One phone call and you're all dead. Your whole family, your whole bloodline is dead."
Damn, son. Damn.
Like, it's such a shitty script, but like, because it's real, you're just kind of laughing.
I mean, this reads like some shit out of Game of Thrones. And I know you're not a fan, but like,
I've just never watched it.
and credit where credit is due. Your whole bloodline is dead is kind of that's a dope line.
Okay, yeah.
Like that's a way to really attempt to poorly intimidate somebody if they are a police officer with you in the backseat of your car. And like, I didn't know that this dude was all like fucking Lord of War. Like, he can barely put a puck in the net. I didn't realize that he had connections to the Russian mob.
He didn't either until he got drunk and started talking to the cops.
Well, I also didn't realize that his sister is like, it looks like she's sort of his PR agent.
Yeah, is like, I think, a fitness model or something like that.
She does a lot. She's a woman of many talents.
Or no talents, like depending on your perspective.
Yeah, her LinkedIn shows like last 10 years at, I think, Galchenyuk Enterprises.
Yeah. Curiously, right around the time her brother got drafted into the NHL.
I fancy how that happens.
Although if she is, we'll get to this later, if she's his PR person, she's doing a great job.
Yeah, she is. That's some silver lining in it for him. But we'll continue with roasting him for later also telling one officer that he'd make one call to Russia and have the officer's wife and daughter's kidneys cut out. Presumably, that would be to sell on the black market to pay for all of the loss of income that he's experiencing from this.
Yeah, white kidneys go a long way on that.
They really do, especially,
He did. It turns out he's not calling Russia, he's calling Jigsaw.
He's like, he just starts in the back of the car. He's just like starts describing like Saw movies.
He's like, and that was the end scene for when your wife. He's like, sir, you're just describing the plot line to Saw 3.
So I'm gonna come up with a really intricate head trap that just like tears your head apart at a timer. How about that, Mr. Officer?
Yeah, and you're gonna be there with your partner, and your partner's gonna open the box, and your wife's head's gonna be it, and you're gonna yell, "What's in the box?" over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then the cop will be like, "Does that mean in the end I shoot you in the head?" And he'd be like, No, except for that part. That's definitely not the part where I get shot in the head.
So, side note to all of this, I did not realize that Alex Galchenyuk had like Russian connections. I just thought he was another like American-born Minnesotan. Turns out something different is the truth.
Yeah, with a name like Galchenyuk, I could have sworn he was French.
I mean, I originally just thought like, I don't know,
Puerto Rican, maybe.
standard American melting pot sort of fare, but it turns out his parents are immigrants and he's, first generation American.
Yeah. So like may have some, like, I doubt
he's
it.
probably like, he knows a guy who he thinks maybe knows a guy.
Yeah, but really he's just at home playing Sega Genesis. Like,
really, he's just watched The Godfather.
My cousin is very good at Sonic. He gets all the rings every level.
Really, he's just really into the movie A History of Violence.
Or Eastern Promises.
Yeah, or both. Like, just Viggo Mortensen mob movies.
Is it the same? Is it the same movie basically? Like,
it essentially is the same.
Different
movie.
director and same actor.
I like both of them.
Yeah, they're both good. We said this earlier that
because the PR stuff that came out with his very very workshopped logo front and center
it's
on all of them was trite and really actually induced empathy. Like, he done fucked up, obviously.
Yeah, he definitely like put in whoever is running his PR, which we're fairly certain is his sister, put out one of the better apology statements we've ever seen. Like, it actually seems genuine, and it's not like, these racist comments are not who I am. Everybody who knows that I'm not a racist. It's like, it shows real contrition.
Was that a preview, Jake?
And embarrassment, really, for the situation. Like, I like, as I was reading it, I was like, this dude actually kind of gets it. And like, is he still probably like somewhat of a douchebag for like, I mean, he did threaten to call Russia to kill a cop. Like, we all want to pretend that we have like Russians on speed dial to like just do like the dirty work for us. It turns out we don't. And
hey, wait,
Alex Galchenyuk might.
I have Yuri who comes and does the dishwasher.
Yeah, Yuri sounds like a great guy.
He yells at me for not pre-cleaning the stuff I put in the dishwasher enough.
The point here is that Galchenyuk does seem genuinely embarrassed and upset and like really kind of defeated by this.
He also doesn't have any other play. Like, the axe is dropped and he probably doesn't have a path back.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Yes, he's going to get care. He obviously needs it. No telling what all he was on. I suspect is mostly alcohol, but
he's also an NHL player.
Yeah, right. It could be any sort of like JFK-esque, like Dr. Feel-Good kind of combo of things, and that's the scary part. It's not super fair to suppose exactly what he was on, but one gets a sense it probably wasn't just alcohol.
The moral of the story, though, is call a fucking Uber.
Really? Yeah. Like, if your family is a professional operation built around your sports career,
call a fucking Uber.
Don't cheap out.
No.
Like, maybe even, Uber Black's not that bad. Like,
no.
Was their driver like out that day? I don't know. It's just very, whenever an athlete does shit like this. I'm just like, why are you not thinking more clearly?
Yeah. You have so much on the line. While we're sitting here, special shout out to the city of San Diego for subsidizing your Lyfts and Ubers. We legitimately...
I didn't drive drunk once.
Well, not that I was going to.
I know.
I haven't done that in a long time. But we took a Lyft sometimes several times in one day, but like even with our Lyft to and from the airport in Portland and all of the Lyfts we took in San Diego, we still spent less money than we would have had we just parked our car at the airport in Portland. So special kudos to the city of San Diego for making it more affordable to not drive drunk, which is what we should all be fucking doing.
Yeah. To spare the athletes from themselves.
Yeah. Or the woman just walking her chihuahua down the side of the street at 3 a.m. who gets sideswiped by an NFL running back.
Like that one time that Abby Wambach got a DUI in Portland.
Yeah.
And they're like, why?
Why?
You could have run back.
Also,
faster.
Also, like, you could have asked anybody in this city for a ride home, and they're like, "You're Abby Wambach. Fuck yeah, I'll give you a ride home." Yeah. Where do you live? Canada or like?
The problem is that she flagged down a Geo Metro, and her thighs don't fit.
And they were like, "Sorry, you're too tall for this car." Every time I get in the back seat of a Nissan and like Lyft, and like every Lyft in Portland is a Nissan, I'm like, I'm too tall for this car.
Yeah.
And I am not that tall.
There seem to be a lot of sedans that like really cramp on the headroom for no particular good reason.
Like I'm either like slouching down like my spine has become molasses, or I'm just like leaning over into the like back of the front seat.
Is that what they're trying to do to like make you buy SUVs and like crossovers now? Is like, even we're making headroom in the back seat DLC on a sedan.
Even we had a rental car down in California, and it was like a RAV4, and I was too tall for that in the front seat.
Tesla or BMW,
is fucking stupid.
Tesla or BMW have a model where like you can pay for more headroom. Like it just
do they really?
It, like no, I made that up.
I was like, that's so cheeky.
Oh, back to Galchenyuk. Somebody ran a BMW into the curb, and like, why is it always a BMW? It seems like BMWs and curbs go together like white on rice.
Brown rice is here to say, hey, come on, man.
Don't accuse me of driving like that.
I'm a better driver than white rice.
And you know what? With the added fiber and protein, I do not doubt that brown rice. Kudos to you.
And with the added cooking time, you'd think you could spend enough time at the bar to sober the fuck up.
That ends our Alex Galchenyuk segment. We're going to stay with really high character guys and pivot to Tony DeAngelo, who was a free agent again after getting bought out by Philly in their tire fire of a fire sale. Everyone knew he was going to Carolina, but because of some CBA language that is meant to not allow teams from laundering salary unfairly, couldn't sign back with Carolina until recently. And well, surprise, surprise, he did.
Yeah, there was like a deadline for it, and also they wouldn't let the trade go through because of the optics, basically.
Well, it was like a calendar year. And so handshake agreement, good old boys club works again.
If anybody in the NHL is in the good old boys club, it's Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah, he's going to go straight to like, he's going to become like head of Department of Player Safety at some point, isn't he? God damn it.
Yeah, but the discipline for all goalies is they have to come before him and he gets to punch them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like the player rep's going to be like Sean Avery or some shit.
There's a Jamie Benn joke in there somewhere, but yeah. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on Tony DeAngelo because he's a pud, but it's just kind of funny that he's been pinging around so much, and like Danny Briere became GM of the team and was like, we gotta get this fucker out of here.
Yeah, he made like his son in a wheelchair
and tossed it down the stairs. Do you want? I don't know what the David Reinbacher saga continues is.
Well, that's a doozy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the David Reinbacher saga. Just let's leave that in as the transition. David Reinbacher got like harangued after getting drafted by Montreal. Like, if you thought that Carey Price mispronouncing your name
or forgetting
your name was the start to your or the end of your problems, well, boy, do we have a surprise for you. And I'm sure David Reinbacher was surprised when the fans of the team that drafted him were in his mailboxes. I don't know. Maybe they got to his TikTok or something, but with like harassment and death threats. Like he recounted like thousands of messages, and this seems to have gone under the radar, maybe because we're Americans, and maybe because the rest of the rest of Canada like expects this out of Montreal fans or some shit. But there were like announcements that people made, like, stop fucking harassing David Reinbacher with like World War II shit. Like, he's Austrian, and people were like, you lost the war kinds of things. Like, and you can, like, they're not wrong, but they're also wrong.
Yeah, they're like
like, you could think of like Austria sort of lost the war twice in a way. But yeah, it was, I don't know, that's just incredibly awful and insensitive. And why, like, he told people about the strange World War II problem, or question that he was asked by a scout in the Montreal program, the team that later drafted him. So he was the person who told people about, like, yeah, this was this really strange interaction. And apparently that just like tripped Granddad into being like, get the kraut, get him.
Like, and we're in no way going to disrespect World War II veterans. Well, on our side, anyways.
Well, I don't even think,
but like,
many of them aren't even alive, let alone on Twitter.
Yeah. There's
or
like
emailing.
There's like what, 30 of them left? Like
yeah, this is,
and that's not me trying to be an asshole. That's me just thinking, like, Jesus Christ, they got to be really old at this point.
Right. This is their children.
Yeah. They're shitty kids who apparently don't realize that, yeah, Hitler was Austrian, but it wasn't Austria that started the war.
Correct.
Like, they started the first one.
Yeah. Maybe it's World War I truthists that are going after David Reinbacher, being like, how dare Franz Ferdinand?
They're like, Gavrilo Princip is a martyr. Like,
this makes no fucking sense. And to a point where Carey Price also like came out and apologized for just his verbal gaffe, but also was like, yo, people,
stop it. I think you can make a point that Gavrilo Princip is probably the most influential person in the 20th century. But that we don't have that kind of podcast.
Just like the argument can be made that David Reinbacher is now the Montreal Canadiens' most key prospect in their future success.
Yeah, I'll submit that question to Dan Carlin. Is Gavrilo Princip the most important or the most influential person in the 20th century? And also, is David Reinbacher now the number one prospect in the Montreal Canadiens pool?
How about we also send that question to like the Athletic mailbag?
Or that's probably maybe more accurate. But
the whole question. Like,
yeah.
World War One.
We definitely need to put the Gavrilo Princip part in there. Speaking of people who are, much maligned after being picked early in the NHL draft, Filip Zadina, who has no connection that we know of to Gavrilo Princip or David Reinbacher, was shopped by Steve Yzerman.
Very loosely. Like, it didn't seem like there was much of a market.
There was no market. There had been rumors for a long time that he was going to be part of the Alex DeBrincat trade.
There are also rumors that he would not report to Grand Rapids.
Which...
Joke's on him. Grand Rapids is lovely.
I mean, if you love being surrounded by, like, only vaguely racist people, or, like, only loosely closeted racist people, and the DeVosses, yes, Grand Rapids is
yeah, but there
lovely.
are like hippies nearby, like Kalamazoo and shit.
No, then just move to fucking Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo is actually relatively solid.
Yeah, they don't have a hockey team.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
They have the Kalamazoo K-Wings and Western Michigan University, which is actually a very good. Yeah,
neither of them are AHL teams associated with the Red Wings.
Whatever. Anyways, all I know is I used to go to K-Wings games and I met Marty Turco and he was very kind. And I still have his autograph. So Filip Zadina was ultimately released by the Red Wings. Yzerman said as much, like, I tried to trade him and it didn't come to fruition. So we're going to release him. He gets waived, clears waivers. And so they just go, all right, we're just going to nullify your contract.
Yep.
And this was all Filip Zadina's wanting. He wanted to start somewhere fresh. He wanted to get a hopefully a fair shake in another city.
That city became San Jose.
I think it's important to note here that, one, I think Yzerman tried to do right by Filip Zadina.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that he did.
He signed him to a 3-year deal after his rookie contract expired. He did not draft Filip Zadina. That was the genius brain trust of Ken Holland.
Right. Which is important to make a distinction when we move on to our next point.
Yeah.
Which was that was the move that made everyone go, after the draft.
Well, like,
and that a lot of people were not super happy with.
Well,
and then like
him and Tyler Wright, who is his like head of scouting with the Red Wings, who has like just like is a fucking bonehead, and ultimately I think was one of the more significant pieces in the downfall of Ken Holland in Detroit and of the Detroit Red Wings, because like
he's your building 7,
Dennis Cholowski, Filip Zadina, like Joe Veleno is like a fine NHL player, but not for a 20th pick or like a first round pick. Like Michael Rasmussen is gonna be like, they drafted him to be like a second line center. He's like maybe gonna be a third line winger. Like, and he was drafted 9th overall. Like, these are bad draft picks, and like.
The draft lottery has done them no favors.
But those are bad draft picks. Like, you look at and you can look at this for like pretty much any pick. Like, oh, look at the guys who were drafted after them. Like, I get it. Like, look at the guys who were drafted after Boston had 3 picks in a row in 2015, right? But like,
also, look at,
it's just when you stack that history on top of each other, you're like, okay, these guys sucked at their job. And then now they're Edmonton's problem. So that's cool. And the Red Wings have drafted incredibly well since then. Cool. Like, we've got a 3rd rounder who is probably going to be a second line winger in Carter Mazur. Like, it's a failure on a bunch of levels. And as a Red Wings fan, I'll say this. I think Jeff Blashill fucked Filip Zadina. He was we have this brilliant scoring forward who has one of the better releases and shots that we've seen coming through. Like, Scott Wheeler and Corey Pronman were both like, Filip Zadina's the fucking shit. He just scores goals. He should go 2nd or 3rd overall. He fell to the Red Wings. The Red Wings got him. What a steal. And then Jeff Blashill was like, learn to play defense. And it's like, that's not like, Can he be better at defense? Sure, but that's not his game. You drafted him to score fucking goals, not sit on the third line and eat pucks in your own zone for the entire game. Like, Jeff Blashill is going to end up being probably a relatively successful coach in the NHL when he's done being an assistant in Tampa Bay. The point stands, though. He honestly, I think, really ruined Filip Zadina's career. And I actually am really excited for him to go to San Jose.
Oh, me too.
Where he could low-key have like a mild breakout there. I don't think he's ever going to be a 40-goal guy like was hypothesized in his draft year. But he could definitely be a 25-goal guy if you give him the right conditions.
And Mike Greer was very smart to take a 1-year swing at him at a 1.1 mil cap hit. Like, all right.
Why the fuck not?
Why not?
So, like, put him on a line where he's not expected to be, like, give him a defensive center who knows how to pass and, like, just set up Filip Zadina. Like, Filip Zadina was never given adequate power play time, despite the fact that he came in and his reputation was as a sniper. Like, you put snipers on your fucking power play, and they're like, no, learn to play defense, you fucker. Like,
yeah, miscoached is the story.
Jeff Blashill is a lot of things, and a brilliant coach isn't one of them. I feel genuinely bad for the rap that Filip Zadina got in Detroit, and I hope that he is successful in the rest of his career, and earns himself a nice, solid payday later on. It won't be with the Red Wings, and that sucks. It sucks when your number 6 overall pick gets waived for nothing.
But he went to nicer weather. Not going to be winters in Detroit as much.
How dare you? Yeah. And like our final quick note here, and this says some guy named Patrice Bergeron. That's clearly it. That's how you pronounce names.
Wait, was that a car? It was actually we were watching highlights of A10 Warthog videos. Bergeron.
The Bert. Yeah. I fucking love it. I like military history. I hate the military industrial complex, but the A10 Warthog is so fucking cool.
Yeah, and not a bad comp for Patrice Bergeron, who was a pretty exciting player, relatively durable at his position, and just dominant defensively for
built to kill tanks and defend the army. Is Patrice Bergeron perhaps the best defensive forward in the history of the game?
Like, rename the fucking Selke.
Yeah, I think there's a very solid case to make it the Patrice, not the Bergeron, the Patrice.
The Patrice. Like the rapper.
Yeah. I started this off by poking fun, but there's honestly like no amount of accolades on our semi-regular podcast is gonna like encompass how good of a player Patrice Bergeron is.
If you know a Boston Bruins fan, find them and hug them, because they're having a tough time today. Because this means that the doomsday machine has been activated in the Bruins organization, and things are going to be a bit different moving forward. Gone are 70 point, or what was it, like 72 wins? I don't know. That's the Chicago Bulls. Gone are
everything relates back to the Chicago
everything.
Bulls. Like that's
gone are
quantum physics, toothpaste. Go Chicago Bulls. Nailed it.
Yeah, gone are President's Cup trophy and probably Stanley Cup trophy aspirations, along with Patrice Bergeron, and one assumes David Krejci says sayonara to.
I'd say Krejci's probably done. I thought Bergeron was more likely to return than Krejci, despite the like end of series crying / hug with and that's not me mocking this at all.
No, it was very heartfelt.
It was, you could just tell that that's the end of an era.
But there were rumors that Bergeron was working out, and then Boston signed Milan Lucic, and you're like, oh.
Are they bringing the friends back?
Right. And
here comes Tyler Seguin. Just kidding.
Really, it's more like bringing the old teddy bear back to smell the person that left. Like, oh, Milan Lucic, you sort of smell like Patrice Bergeron.
And maul some campers.
Even though you haven't played together for a decade.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think there's definitely some regression coming for Buffalo. There's definitely some regression coming for Boston.
No, that is Buffalo's music you're hearing though in the back. Like,
it's Buffalo from the top rope. Yeah, this does a couple of things. One, it gives Buffalo. Oh my God, this does a couple of things. One, it gives Boston a little bit of extra cap space because they don't have to pay the bonus incentives that they had put into Patrice Bergeron's contract. Either that or they don't count towards the cap.
The problem is they have to go shopping at like a supermarket of free agents that is picked over as all get out.
They're going to have to trade. And
with what assets exactly?
Exactly. Yeah. One of our friends / co-fantasy league players.
He's our resident Boston analyst.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Only because Say doesn't talk up very much, speak up very much. Like there are a couple of centers who could be on the market, and Mark Scheifele and Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm, I think, being the more attractive of those two candidates.
Oh, absolutely. They could just pick up like Patrick Kane off the scrap heap too, and just like maybe Vladimir Tarasenko too. Just get a like 2006 All-Star team.
Neither
together.
of those are centers though, so like they desperately need some help down the middle. Not to discredit Pavel Zacha, because I think that was a very shrewd pickup by, especially like you're like, oh, we gave up Eric Haula and we got Pavel. That's a very smart trade. But if he's your 1C, you're probably not a cup contender, let alone a playoff team.
Nope.
Like even if Pasta scores 80 goals next year, like you're still probably not in the playoffs, especially in the Atlantic, which is like chocked full of good teams.
Yeah, and like they did a good job replacing his salary, but you just saw Taylor Hall walk out the door. You replaced him with like some parts and pieces,
James
including
Van Riemsdyk.
Kevin Shattenkirk. Like they saw Chicago tank and said, "All right, we're gonna do this."
Only 1 year. Next year they have a shit ton of cap space. Anyways, the point of this is Patrice Bergeron is irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. And both from a leadership and a locker room and like glue that holds the thing together standpoint, but also from just like an on ice standpoint. He was a brilliant NHL player.
He was the cog which held that whole wheel spinning and together. And well, he gone.
Yeah. So, this is definitely a happy trails moment because like he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. I would like, if he's not, I don't know who is.
He's still going to be on like menswear commercials in the Boston area for the foreseeable future.
At least the next like 5 or 10 years.
Fashion icon Patrice Bergeron was definitely an understated opinion.
He's no Pasternak in that department, but I think
obviously he's stylistically very different. He's a little bit closer to the like Heinrich Lundqvist school of, haberdashery type menswear,
as one should be. Happy trails, Patrice. The Selkie's yours. I think we're just going to stop awarding it. And we'll just, every year they'll just be like, Patrice Bergeron, nobody saw it coming. And he'll be like walking down with a walker in like 2057. And they'll be like, yeah, we're just going to give it to him.
The Selkie's just like sad for a couple of years and just like, they don't give it out.
They're like, we don't know.
Yeah. Like it doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. This wouldn't be, wouldn't be honorable.
Some quick hitters here. Milan Lucic, as we just talked about, went back to Boston for he was shipping up to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that fucking song.
In the Harvard Yard. But he's going to sell a fuck ton of jerseys and the fans are going to like cry into Milan Lucic jerseys.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to work.
Exactly. Ryan O'Reilly signed in Nashville.
What? The alt country star is going to Nashville?
Well,
name something that is...
Alt country star is a bit of a stretch.
She's the next Taylor Swift. What are you talking about?
How fucking dare you?
Imagine when Ryan O'Reilly and Taylor Swift are on stage together.
She would never.
She would absolutely.
No, he's way too busy courting the National.
He's the husband she always needed.
No, she can't be happy. Then her music will dry up.
That would be pretty awesome. But what if it's like a Star is Born type of scenario and like Ryan O'Reilly writes this amazing hit and goes on to a storied career? Like,
let's not compare Taylor Swift to Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga can't carry her shoes.
But Ryan O'Reilly to Nashville started rumors that the deadly locker room cancer was afoot in Toronto because he signed basically an identical deal to what he signed in Toronto to go to what on paper looks like a much worse team.
There were a lot of Nashville went for character this offseason, and it's like, yeah, but what about wins?
But character.
UC Saros is only so good.
Yeah, right. Roman Josi has only so much left in the tank. But Ryan O'Reilly going to where he has always been meant to play.
Toronto signed, it was like they're like, can we be the bad guy?
Can we?
Like everybody accuses us of it anyways, so can we be the bad guy?
Yeah, Brad Treliving in his new confines in Toronto quickly doubled down on alleged locker room cancers and signed Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. Max Domi, whose dad played in Toronto. So that's the sound you hear of more jerseys selling.
Honestly, I think the Tyler Bertuzzi signing was a super shrewd move by
both of them.
By Brad Treliving. The only problem that Toronto has is they're $12 million over the cap right now.
Yeah, so
I think those are both shrewd signings. How Toronto is going to be allowed to play games next year, I don't know, because they have a shit ton of cap space to get off, to get rid of. And Arizona's like, no, we're not doing that. We're good.
Yeah, they're going to have to make Ozarks level of laundering cap space. There's going to be some broken knees and some LTIR coming up in the near future. Someone's going to have a mysterious flesh munching illness and have to retire.
We'll call it the Marian Hossa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mark Giordano is going to decide to open up a pizza place to compete with.
He'll call it
to compete with Giordano's because he's personally offended.
He'll call it Ross Colton signed 4 years of $4 million per with Colorado after they traded for him because Tampa can't afford him.
The good old 4x4.
Did you know that owners of a Ram 2500 are more than twice as likely to get a DUI than any other vehicle in the United States?
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's Ross Colton. No.
Yeah, really. His offense compares to the Dodge Ram 2500 and that, I don't fucking know.
Guaranteed to get a DUI. No, I think this is a relatively solid signing. $4 million is probably a little bit rich for Ross Colton.
But if they actually deploy him, I mean, he's been just scoring goals while he's been playing
13 minutes a game or whatever.
10 minutes a game. He's borderline fantasy relevant at single digit fantasy.
I'm drafting
time
him in the second
point.
round.
That's big. That's a lot of upside. I encourage you to do that.
Yeah. I'll draft him and Val Nichushkin, but Val Nichushkin might not play. So
yeah. Did you watch the video that came out around that?
No.
I haven't yet. I'm kind of.
Again, no social media, so I don't. When shit comes out, I rarely know about it.
So the the police body camera footage from.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like 13 minutes long or some shit. I didn't
That's like,
feel like putting myself
that's like
through that.
11 minutes longer than I need it to be.
Yeah, and about 11 minutes longer than my attention span is worth these days.
Yeah.
Speaking of no attention span, nobody got no attention for no Vladimir Tarasenko and no Patrick Kane. They are mysteriously, and in Tarasenko's case and not mysteriously in Kane's case, like not getting anything from teams. Like Kane's hurt. He's going to miss a bunch of time. That makes sense. He can sign with a team whenever he wants to. Tarasenko, on the other hand, fired his agent.
He was so upset with the offers he was getting. He fired his agents and started over.
He killed the messenger.
And still isn't signed.
Like, yeah, that's shown you that your poor performance after you were traded for a lot.
Dude, you had like 20 goals last year. Yeah. Like, you ain't getting $7 million a year.
No.
Yeah.
Them ship has sailed.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And honestly, like in the current cap economics of the NHL, like you're better off paying $3 million to a maybe might score 25 goals 22-year-old than once scored 40 goals 35-year-old.
Correct.
So like those are the economics that we live in, and these players who think that they're going to do better than that are proving themselves wrong. And
really, who Vladimir Tarasenko should call is every NFL running back.
Who Vladimir Tarasenko should call, because he needs PR real bad, is Anna Galchenyuk.
I mean, he hasn't done anything bad. She's a crisis PR.
Yeah. Well, no, she might be able to be like, no, look at my boy Vlad, man.
I don't know. All we've seen of her portfolio right now is mea culpa writing. So
hey, and you know what? I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt that she is capable in many other facets of PR.
Yeah, but like, can't be that
Alex
hard.
Galchenyuk keeps getting contracts, and he's not very good.
Right, but if you have nothing to do besides fall on your own sword, it can't be that hard to, like, you know, turn down the lights, light some candles, drink a half a bottle of whiskey, bust out the laptop, get
in your BMW,
turn on the Arms of the Angels and write a good I'm sorry.
Yeah, but at the same time, a lot of people fucking fail at it.
I am forever amazed at that. I think they just need to find more Midwesterners to apologize. Like,
yeah, that's what we do.
We are sorry for being sorry. Like, I don't understand how that's not something that has taken over.
I am sorry when I leave a party before it's done, to the point where, like, I'll bring baked goods to your house the next day because I am sad for me for leaving your party. You wanted me to watch your dog and I only pet it for 5.5 out of the 6 hours I was there. I am so sorry. Like, let me buy you another dog.
What you need is an Irish goodbye consultant.
There is no overlap in the circles that are Irish goodbye and Midwestern goodbye. But you need to find somebody who like has an understanding of both. Speaking of Irish goodbyes, Alex DeBrincat is now a Detroit Red Wing.
That happened fast.
Yeah.
Almost before I noticed.
It happened so fast that it was really slow and drawn out.
It was only slow and drawn out because Ottawa was paying attention to getting sold and shit. And then they were just like, oh, all right, make it happen.
And also Steve Yzerman was like, no, I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah. And
like he just said he would only go to like 5 cities and 4 of them are out of the race. So, no.
Yep. Big ol' nah.
The trade was Alex DeBrincat to Detroit for Dominic Kubalik, who honestly is a really good piece. He'll score 20 goals on your third line.
Nice pickup for Ottawa.
Good pickup. They got a 2024 fourth and a conditional first, which the condition is basically Detroit decides at the last minute which one of their first rounders they'll give them.
Okay.
And they got Donovan Zabrango, who is like one of a like legitimate busload of left defenseman prospects that the Red Wings had, and
just
not
some
one of the top 5. So,
extra fruit off of that defensive prospect tree that Detroit has in the backyard.
Detroit has spent so many draft picks on left defensemen that it was super refreshing for them to spend some on a right defenseman this year.
It's just a pile back there.
Yeah, good trade overall for the Red Wings. Once again, Yzerman proves that he has dirt on everybody. What I think it is he just like waits for you to be about to be raked over the coals and goes, "Hey, I might be able to help with that." And then you're so desperate that you go, I just need something. And he's like, here's Donovan Sabrango. Yeah.
This could be worse for you.
Donovan Sabrango's nickname better be something related to Django Unchained. If it's not, that's a massive misstep.
Zabrango Unchained. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good fantasy.
If he ever makes the
team
NHL,
name,
that's definitely a, yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us today. Again, we apologize for the delay. We know you
Don't
were just
stop
like,
apologizing.
no, I'm from fucking Michigan. This is what we do.
Yeah. Fight it. Fight it.
This from the guy who like
Breathe.
tries to find good in like every human being, like a fucking goddamn Midwesterner.
Empathy is one hell of a drug, my
It's
friend.
yeah, and yet we're both sad. So
That's precisely why.
Thank you so much for listening to us and sticking with us. You can find our bullshits all over the internet. And if you interact with us on the internet at this point, it's definitely Evan. But you can find us at handsomehockey.com, Handsome Hockey Podcast on Instagram, Handsome Hockey on Threads.
Yeah, bitch.
Oh, are we on Threads?
We are.
Oh, cool. Threads before TikTok. Look at us go. At Handsome Hockey on X. X gonna give it to you. What? Or handsomehockeypod@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. We have a YouTube page.
This is my reminder.
Yeah.
To update the YouTube page.
And before we sign off, I do want to once again thank DF Pendries for this incredible jersey, the Pride jersey for the Rivs from last season. It's beautiful.
They've been selling a lot of amazing, beautiful jerseys, both on X Gon Give It To You and on eBay, and just. Yeah, we shout out and thanks for this awesome jersey and the opportunity to buy it. I know some people got some dope ass Buttes jerseys.
I'm gonna miss the Buttes.
Yeah, it was a solid send off to this PHF fandom that got thrown into the volcano in Mordor.
Yeah, so thank you again, DF. You're an amazing human, and we hope you're doing well. Thank you to all of the listeners out there. Just a word of advice. If you do if the cops like somehow show up at whatever you're doing, maybe don't say you're gonna cut their daughter's kidneys out.
That's weirdly graphic and very specific.
Yeah. And like kidneys are like kind of like they're important. So like you don't want to like threaten an important like maybe go for the gallbladder or like the pituitary gland or something.
I think that's also pretty important.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's the ones that we don't need?
Threaten an appendix.
Oh, the appendix.
Like,
that's right.
I'm going to threaten you with very complicated surgery.
I'm going to threaten you by taking out the thing that doesn't do anything and is only there to kill you.
Right. Yeah. Be much more germane in your threats.
I'm very kind. I do surgery in my backyard.
Like, how do you know? My appendix is going south.
Yeah. Well, I got a truffle pig that also smells bad appendixes. All right. That's enough. Have a great, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Stay handsome, everybody.
Restez beau tout le monde.